Louisville football has had a lot of highs and lows over the last decade. They've had really good quarterbacks such as Teddy Bridgewater, Lamar Jackson, and Malik Cunningham, but they've also had years where they have been terrible. Overall, a lot of people seem to think that Louisville is a pretty boring and mediocre program now, and that those days of Lamar Jackson and top 25 ranking are a long ways away. They were ranked at one point during the 2020 season, but they pretty much completely fell apart. Some say Satterfield's a boring coach and couldn't recruit, but right now, he is proving that he was worth being hired, and he is making his money on the recruiting trail. The Cardinals are expected to have one of the best recruiting classes in school history, if not the best class in school history, and that will be headlined by a 5-star running back. In today's video, we're going to talk about who that 5-star running back is, what his impact will be at Louisville, and my overall thoughts on Louisville football moving forwards. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So you're probably wondering who the subject of today's video is, and it is none other than current 5-star running back Reuben Owens. He recently committed to the Cardinals this week, but we first need to talk about Louisville's running back situation before we can talk about why this is so shocking. Over the last few years, Louisville has had some great running quarterbacks. Lamar Jackson was obviously amazing, and Malik Cunningham might be one of the most underrated quarterbacks in college football. At running back though, they really haven't had anyone that special. Javion Hawkins had a really good 2019 campaign, and Brandon Radcliffe was a great 3-year starter, but neither of those guys were drafted, and both barely did anything in the NFL. You may be asking why am I even bringing this up, but it does become important later on in the video. So the guy who they just landed though could change that narrative, and his name is Reuben Owens. He was born and raised in the Lone Star State, more specifically El Campo, Texas. He was special when he entered the high school world, as both the coaching staff and college football programs saw an extremely bright future in him. He got his first big-time offer as a freshman in 2019, when the SEC School of Arkansas decided to offer him a scholarship during the Chad Morris era. This was the first of many offers, as by the beginning of his sophomore year, he had over 20 announced offers. Owens has been a big deal, but he really established himself in 2021 as he rushed for an absurd 2,989 yards on only 248 attempts. It gets better though. He had 46 touchdowns. He was putting up video game numbers, and this guy was torching every single defense he played against. This was total insanity, which is why he was ranked as a 4-star recruit, and some even thought he was a 5-star recruit. Right now, he's the number 1 running back in the class, but for a little while, he was further back. He wasn't the biggest back in the world, but he knew his skill set was versatile and translatable to the college level. He said, quote, "I consider myself a hybrid back that's versatile. I can give you production in the receiving game and also have a run package." Because of that, he was obviously a hot commodity on the recruiting trail and gained 41 total scholarship offers, but what was he looking in for the school of his choosing? He said, quote, "Just a family culture that's like real family, and a coach that wants to develop me as a person more than a player." He was obviously a huge deal, and he decided he was going to stay home and play for the flagship school of Texas. The Longhorns have had many great running backs over the years, and I bet he took notice of what Bijan Robinson was doing there. Originally though, it did look like it was going to be Oklahoma, but as we know, he later ended up choosing the Horns. So that's the end of the story, right? He's going to be the replacement of Bijan Robinson. No, not quite. This was a huge get for Texas at the time, but it was only temporary. Things would change and go in another direction, as he would later decommit, with his dad saying, quote, "We're just going to open it up and make sure we're making the right choice for him and making sure he's making the right choice." When he did commit to Texas, it was during the Tom Herman era, so Sark could not end up keeping him for long, but that probably wasn't the only factor. Add in the fact that his main recruiter was Texas running backs coach Stan Drayton, who eventually took the Temple head coaching job. I know this ended up happening over a year later, but that definitely is something worth noting. So where would Owens end up going now? Well, it did seem like he was still considering Texas and other schools in the state such as Texas A&M and TCU, and then also Alabama tried to get in on him. Obviously, Alabama wants every 5-star running back they can get, and he was actually quoted saying that Bama was a powerhouse and it could be a good fit for him, but it ended up being neither of those schools that I mentioned. Where he ended up going really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. This past week, we saw Arch Manning commit, and a ton of big-time receivers chose Ohio State, but maybe the most shocking piece of news that's going under the radar is the fact that Owens decided to commit to Louisville. I mean, what? What makes a guy go from Texas and visiting all these Texas schools to deciding to go to Louisville, Kentucky? That is the big question mark, but he did offer up an explanation, saying, quote, "I have always been a trailblazer and aim to create my own legacy on the road less traveled in hopes of inspiring others to believe in themselves. It was the driving force and me making this life-changing decision on where I want to spend the next 3 to 4 years of my life. Owens' commitment makes history in a lot of ways. He becomes the second highest ranked recruit to ever sign with Louisville, passing their former star quarterback Brian Brom, and only trailing longtime NFL running back Michael Bush. So how will he fit with the Cards? Well, one scout said it'll be pretty good, as he said, quote, Owens should fit well into Satterfield's dynamic run offense. The Cardinals rushed for 2,728 yards and 29 touchdowns in 2021, including a combined 1,100 yards and 6 scores from their running back duo of Jalen Mitchell and Travion Cooley. Owens should immediately slot into the rotation and be a difference maker. So yeah, he'll probably do well at Louisville just based on talent alone, and everywhere I look, he's been compared to a pretty good player. That guy was TJ Yeldon. In case you didn't know, he ended up beating out Jameis Winston for the Player of the Year award back in Alabama, and he was a 5-star recruit who chose to go to Alabama after flipping from Auburn. If he could be anything like Yeldon was in college, then Louisville's going to be in good shape, and Owens will be on track to becoming an NFL player. Some say Yeldon's been a bust, but I'd say that's a pretty good comparison. There is some controversy to this commitment, as it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and some people think that there's stuff going on below the surface. Some think NIL was a huge factor, because yeah, this doesn't really make a whole lot of sense on paper. We have entered a new era of recruiting in college football, so money does seem like it could have been a factor, because the state of the program and Louisville's development at the running back spot make me question it. It honestly makes no sense for him to leave the state of Texas. As I said earlier in the video, we're going to come back to that fact that the two best running backs were Brandon Radcliffe and Javion Hawkins, and both of them ended up going undrafted. Only one of them even had an 1,000-yard plus season, and that's only happened once in the last decade, so why would a 5-star choose them over schools such as Texas, Bama, TCU, and A&M who produce consistent NFL talent? That is a question we're all asking, and either he truly wants to do something new, loves the staff that much, or he got paid big money. In my opinion, it's probably a factor of all three. He probably wants to be the most memorable Louisville running back, he probably loves Coach Satterfield, and he's probably going to get a nice NIL deal. I mean, pretty much every 5-star and blue chip recruit is probably going to have some sort of deal in place, so it wouldn't be a crime for him to choose Louisville. If anything, that's what college football fans want. Would you rather him go to Alabama, or would you rather him go to Louisville? It spreads out the talent a little bit more, and definitely makes things pretty enticing. It makes each and every recruitment a little bit more wild, and it definitely makes things very unpredictable. This guy also recently got a tattoo of Louisville's area code, so he is here to stay, and I'm pumped to see what's going to happen for both him, the program, and these other recruits. What do you guys think though? What do you think of Owens, and what is your expectations for both Satterfield and the program moving forwards? Please be sure to let me know down below, and if you're a fan of another school, give me another topic, player, or anything I can take a look at next, and be sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and check out all my other videos on the end screen. Hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.